What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Okay, happy Sunday everybody, hope you're enjoying your weekend. Normally I take Sunday off, but there has been so much on this week that I had to put out a separate episode today covering specifically the concern with the lockdown situation in China and the tremendous pressure it's putting on the economy. So we're going to be diving into that today, and then we'll have regular episodes tomorrow as well. So sorry to disrupt your day of rest on Sunday, but let's dive in. With the number of residents under varying levels of lockdown nearing 40 million and the economic megacities of Shenzhen and Shanghai, as well as dozens of other locations, big and small, tightening restrictions, the question on many minds in Chinese policy circles is, how long can China's already crisis-hit economy sustain Beijing's zero-tolerance policy before the whole thing comes tumbling down? Over the last 12 months, as sporadic outbreaks in places like Inner Mongolia in the north, Henan near Beijing, and Xi'an in the center of the country resulted in tight city-wide lockdowns, some voices domestically spoke up about the wisdom of the zero-tolerance COVID policy, a policy which employs an aggressive government response to even just one or a few cases in order to stamp out a small outbreak before it grows. Each time these voices were very much a small minority, and the official position and much of the popular opinion stood behind maintaining this zero-tolerance policy. However, now things could be different. With previous small outbreaks, official government numbers were in the dozens. Now, official government numbers are in the thousands each day, with almost every province a major city affected. In this environment, strict COVID control policies are costing billions of dollars a day and hurting both households and small businesses, not to mention business confidence for investors who have factories in the country. There is also the cost to local governments, who were already facing a very tough financial situation and fiscal constraints, with land sales revenues in particular smashed due to the Evergrande Housing Crisis, something that we discussed in depth yesterday. In 2020, the central government dedicated funds to help local governments battle the pandemic, but local authorities have had to rely on their own revenue since last year. According to the Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post, Suzhou, a relatively wealthy city west of Shanghai in Jiangsu province, said last month that it had already spent 120 million RMB, almost $20 million, fighting an outbreak that began in early February. The funds were spent on protective equipment, testing equipment, infrastructure, and medical care equipment. Jiang Fei, chief macro analyst with Great Wall Securities, estimated that the cost of mass testing of residents was somewhere between 24 to 48 RMB, about $7.50 USD per person in China. Quote, "There is a huge burden for many local governments with populations of more than 1 million, who would typically spend less than 200 RMB a year on healthcare for each resident," according to 2020 data released by the Chinese government. Cities like Yinchuan, the capital of one of China's poorest provinces, Ningxia, spent as little as 30 yuan per resident each year on public healthcare. By the way, 30 yuan or RMB is less than $5. As such, containment policies of local governments are largely driven by fiscal constraints, and as the economy slows due to lockdowns and other issues, I'm looking at you, property sector, more fiscal pressure will be put on local governments, especially to maintain economic growth. And remember, 2 weeks ago, Beijing set growth rates at a fairly ambitious 5.5%. Quote, "All in all, the broadly defined fiscal deficit is arranged to grow faster than revenue in 2022. Clearly pointing to bigger fiscal stimulus to ensure a steady economic growth rate. This means that public debt will continue to pile up quickly in 2022. Leadership, including Premier Li Keqiang, have said this week that China's zero-COVID policy will be, quote, "fine-tuned to minimize disruptions to the economy," end quote, but there are no signs of it being abandoned. Also, what exactly fine-tuning means is unclear. The thing about zero tolerance is that you either have zero tolerance or you don't. You either exert tremendous efforts to stamp out cases, or you adopt varying degrees of managed opening. Shanghai, China's international financial hub and logistics center, has so far pushed back against a complete lockdown. We've covered this week, trying instead to find a middle way with limited lockdowns of some areas of the city and urging residents to work from home. But poorer regions, like the northeast, have opted for full lockdowns. Most new infections are in the northeastern province of Jilin, its capital, Changchun, which has a population just shy of 10 million people, has been in lockdown since the end of last week. All of this is putting tremendous pressure on the Chinese economy, and ultimately it may force regulators in Beijing to make a decision. Do they continue to prioritize the zero-tolerance approach and allow the economy to crash, or do they bite the bullet and begin the opening up process in order to save the economy? On Wednesday, Moody's analysts expressed, quote, China's mass testing approach requires the use of nucleic acid tests that require labs to process samples, but Omicron's rapid spread means that the approach is hitting its limits. We expect more downsides to the Chinese economy to materialize in the first quarter, with the economic pain possibly stretching to the early parts of the second quarter should the lockdowns continue if the Omicron spread proves to be more than a flash in the pan. End quote. And on Thursday, China-based investment bank Tianfeng Securities expressed in a research note, quote, the outbreak is currently the biggest macroeconomic event in China. The current situation across the country is indeed severe. We can see the pressure on medical care and finances from the existing model. Globally, pandemic control policies are being adjusted, and the possibility of adjustment in China is also increasing. Okay, next up, let's touch on an Evergrande-related development because we haven't touched too much on Evergrande specifically this week. But first, if you're enjoying the content, guys, as always, it's a huge help if you hit the like button. It really helps for a small YouTube channel like this. And if you're watching for the first time and you're getting some value from the episode, you enjoy the episode or there's some value there, maybe consider subscribing. I normally release one of these every day, and it'll have the most up-to-date analysis on China if you're subscribed and you hit that bell notification. Also, one more thing, you guys can probably see, especially those of you who watch many episodes who've been following me for a while, that I'm about to hit 10,000 subscribers. I also learnt this week, YouTube informed me that the channel hit 1 million views this week. This is just incredible for me. Like, I have difficulty believing these numbers. It seems crazy that so many people would watch this content, and so I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you guys, especially those who have been with me for the last few months and even for the last few years, at least the last 2 years for some of you guys. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. When I started this channel, I had no idea that it was going to reach this level. It's incredibly humbling, and it's a tremendous pleasure and privilege to be able to produce this content for you guys and to have so many people spending the time to watch and comment and share their thoughts. So thank you very much. I hope that I can continue producing content that you all enjoy and that you get value from, and that I can maintain and indeed increase incrementally the quality of the presentation and the quality of the news and analysis for you all. Thank you again. Okay, moving from one economic crisis to another, Chinese financial outlet Taxpayer reports this week that with local government support, cash-strapped and crisis-hit China Evergrande Group has secured money to finish a number of housing developments from banks, state-owned enterprises, and local government financing vehicles. Taxpayer writes that in northeast China's Liaoning province, which is currently wrestling with large-scale breakouts, Evergrande has reached an agreement with the local government and contract builders, with the contractors promising to finish the projects with their own funds. Evergrande has agreed to use some of the project's properties and proceeds from housing sales as collateral to repay the contractors under government supervision, according to the report. Quote, the move reflects local government efforts to prevent contagion risks from real estate troubles amid concerns that mass suspension of property projects may cause social unrest and bleed into related industries. End quote. In Fujian, in the south of the country, a local government financing vehicle, these are essentially state-owned firms that regional and local governments use to fund infrastructure have been entrusted by Evergrande to take over 2 projects and provide enough funding to finish them. It's reported that Evergrande is to pay the local government financing vehicles after the properties are sold. State-owned financial institutes have also been sold stakes in some unfinished projects. Again, this is a type of soft bailout, with the costs being dumped on local governments and thus ultimately taxpayers. For example, in Chongqing in the southwest, a great city to visit by the way, the local government is funding unfinished projects. Industrial sources speaking to both Caixin, Yicai, and others have leaked that Evergrande has, quote, tried about a dozen different approaches, end quote, to work with local governments to avoid suspending construction, and that, quote, those approaches are generally suitable to relatively wealthy regions, but a lot of Evergrande's projects are located in remote, poorer areas, end quote. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.